Today's video is on the Danish 1923 or model of 1923 hand grenade. This is also known as the M23. When the Germans took over, they also used this grenade, gave it a different name. I don't remember what the name was for that. It's not a video about the history of this. It's a video about how they work. So this version of it is the practice one. It's probably the more popular versions you're going to see. Normally they've got yellow or gray paint on it. This one here has yellow flakes on it, and it also seems to have some sort of gray stuff on it. So I don't know if it had been painted a bunch of times and if this 23 was just put on again. They show up on the originals, but I don't know if it was painted then or somebody just decided they wanted to repaint it. As I said, this is a practice version. You could tell the practice version from the explosive version because number one, you've got a couple of little holes in here. So from pictures, you'll probably be able to tell from there. That's for releasing some of the pressures from the delay and from the actual spotting charge. Also why there's a hole at the bottom here. Spotting charge, pretty much most of it comes through here. And allows you to see your grenade after you've thrown it. Other option or other visible differences, there's no hole here or metal plate covering a hole here. That is a filling hole on the real ones where you would put your explosive in. As this one here has no explosive in it, it doesn't need it. Also, the reason that the originals have it is because these areas are all sealed off. So it's a tube that runs right through here in the shape of a T basically. What you would have is your charge or detonator at the bottom here with a bit of a delay, and your delay up here. What you would see here is your safety basically, which physically blocks the 2 points. So if you're still holding it, once it burns through its delay, it doesn't burn through the last bit of delay and explode. So it's a safety thing on the real ones. This one here, as you'll see in a bit, it's a little too short to actually cover it, so I don't know if it was a replacement one, because when you throw them, you lose them, or if it's because the actual practice grenade doesn't need it because it's not an explosive charge, so even if the thing goes off in your hand, it doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt you. So we'll get into how this thing actually works. So normally you would have it sent to you already. You would put your finger over the actual pin. There is no spring under here. It's just you hold it into place so it doesn't fall out. So normally you would put your thumb over it like this. You would take your hand, pull it out, remove your safety wire. Now that you have your safety wire removed, up top, as you see, it's spring. There's a spring under there. What you would do is actually find an object that's hard enough, or just use your hand and give it a hit. That would start the delay burning. So you basically, it's a cap underneath. Once it fires, you're going to hear a hissing because obviously the grenade delay is burning. It's a black powder delay. That's what these little holes here are for. It allows the gases to come out without pressurizing. Pressurizing a smoke producing or a gas producing delay will cause it to burn faster, which will cause it to be closer to, well, reduce the amount of actual time you have before it explodes. So you want to avoid that. So you'll see all the old hand grenades in that use black powder all have some sort of a protector on it. This usually has paper covering it, a lacquered one I assume, to keep water out. But that's what you have. At that point, when you've set it off like that, you throw it. Throwing it usually, because you're throwing it a bit like a football, your natural throwing, it will start spinning and this will fly out. As I said, it is a physical block, and the ones for the real explosive one would have a hole down the middle just to allow for more gases to go through there instead of coming around it. So that's will now be out. once this lands, the delay will actually burn through. Now that there's nothing in the way here, it will jump to the next part of the delay, burn that through, and go off. Set off the explosive, or in this case, you would set off the powder charge, which is just another black powder charge that would be smoke, would create smoke to get the, just a seer grenade. So that's the case here. On this side, you would have, in the originals, 3.5 seconds approximately of burn. Once it jumps over here, it would have another 2 seconds of burn before it set off your detonator or your black powder charge. Later on, they realized that this was a little bit too long. So what they did is they modified the new ones, built new ones, and basically just drilled into the delay at the bottom to take it from 2 seconds to about 1/2 second. And that solved that problem there. On this grenade, you basically were able to, since it's a practice one, reuse it. It had to go to the factory to get reused, refitted, I guess you would call it. So each time it went to the factory for a refit, you would get a new dent put onto it, or a dimple installed. So you'd see little dimples around here. So each time, this one here is about 10 times, I think, that's been reloaded. You could also see a little bit of yellow paint on this one here. Also, sometimes it looks like there's gray paint, which are both colors for the practice one. The way this grenade works is that, as I said, there's this with a spring in it, which will drop the spring out so we can see a bit. All right. I had to make the spring myself because obviously the one that was supposed to be with it was no longer there. In there, you see it looks like a cap. Well, that's usually filled up with a primary explosive of some sort that obviously is impact sensitive. So when you hit it, it will ignite and start the delay. Not much fancy about that. The pin that goes through there, that little spring that's there, this one here, would go through the hole here, which physically keeps it from being able to contact the other end. On the other side of this, you have a tube with a, I guess, anvil of some sort on it. And that's what would set off the initial in it. To send it back to the factory, they would remove this, which you don't usually see work well on ones you find because they're all jammed up in the tube that's here. I found this out because I heated this thing up to remove that tube. It's all soldered in place. Like I said, it goes from here right through, basically 3 parts, and a piece that goes in as a T. This is just a tube with threading on it and a firing pin at the top. So that's where you put 3.5 seconds worth of delay. So it probably pretty much filled up the whole thing with a black powder charge. And then they would reload it, put it back together for the group, rebuild it all, hammer another notch on here, and then ship it back. That's basically how these things work. There's nothing that much fancy about it. There's no fancy delay mechanisms on it like you see on the new stuff. Once you hit your hand on the top, it goes no matter what. So unless you're holding the safety pin in the disconnector, you're not going to you're going to want to get rid of it. So plans for the future, since I did take it apart, I do want to actually load it one time with the black powder delay and everything, just to see how that would look, sort of like what I did with the Mills bomb, and just to give it a view on camera, just so people could see what it's like. So I'll make that video eventually. Right now it's snowing a lot. I don't have the opportunity to go outside and actually test the delays for it, so it might be a little bit later. And eventually I'll put that up probably as a short, since it won't take very long, and hopefully I'll have that out for you guys. Hope you guys like this video. If there's anything you need to ask, I could try to answer it for you, but there isn't that much information, surprisingly, out there. A couple of good sites that talk about this, but only one that really gives a lot more information. Practice-wise, there were multiple versions of them. This was the most complex one, the one that actually acted the most, I guess, realistic metal-wise and everything. The second most realistic one was a block of wood that had a cardboard tube at the bottom of it that was filled up with black powder. It had a tube like in the front here built into it, so it did have the same delay. It's just that it was simpler, and it also could be reloaded once again from the factory. It'd be interesting to try to make one just because it's simple enough to make, but at the same time, sort of probably cool to try out. So that one there, and then they had a version was just a block that you could throw around just for practicing, I guess, getting it to target. Same weight as the original, but just designed for throwing practice, for teaching. Apparently there was also one version of this with the delay in it, but no spotting charge. That was for teaching in classrooms how to use it and how it worked. I don't think I'm going to make that version. If I do make a thing, I'll make it with the actual delay and the puff of smoke so that it could be seen on video. I think for what it is, they'll probably both be about equal. It's just the visuals, I guess, for that would be better. All right, so if there's any questions, once again, like I said, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I've tried to film this thing about 4 or 5 times already, and I may have missed out that I thought I said because it was written in the first, well, I said in the first couple of copies, but if there is, I'll write them in the description underneath. Hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.